Shalom, and welcome back to Bnei Noach Academy, Thoughts on the Torah. Please remember to hit the like button, to subscribe, and most importantly, to share this insight and inspiration with friends and family. So if you look into the book of Genesis, chapter 41, verses 33 and on, right after Pharoh shares with Joseph his dreams, his two dreams, and Joseph interprets the dreams and in fact makes the point, explains why God showed him basically more or less the same dream twice to emphasize that this is happening imminently. In verse 33, Joseph goes ahead and gives him advice and says, well, let me offer you my advice, or so it seems he's saying. And Pharaoh should appoint somebody who is smart and wise, and they should be in charge of collecting all this wealth, all this good that we're going to have in the 7 years, and put it away, store it away for the 7 bad years. And immediately after that, if you look in verse 47, instead of Pharaoh saying to him, hey, listen, mister, all I asked you to do was to interpret the dreams. I didn't ask your advice. You're not one of my advisors. You're not part of the cabinet. Instead, Pharaoh goes, wow. First it says the plan pleased Pharaoh and all of his, all the people around him. And then Pharaoh goes, wow, there's no one wiser than him. So not only he accepted the interpretation of the dream, but he was actually excited for being given this unsolicited advice. What's going on here? And besides, how does Pharaoh know that Joseph's interpretation was the correct one? In fact, we know, as the verse itself already told us, that there were many, many professional dream interpreters and sorcerers that offered their interpretation to Pharaoh. And in the sources, that is in the Talmud and the Midrash, there are many different interpretations listed, which they have actually offered to Pharaoh, and each one of them Pharaoh shot down. When it came here to Joseph's, he knew that this is the correct interpretation. He had no doubt. How come? The answer to the first question actually answers the second question. You see, Joseph was not giving him advice. In fact, it is not advisable. It is not something that should be encouraged to give unsolicited advice. It's actually, perhaps even in many cases, it can be considered bad behavior. It's not your business. You don't have to give, unless you see, God forbid, that someone's in danger. They need, they have an imminent issue that needs to be resolved. Then you help. Then you mix in. But otherwise, don't give him advice. He didn't ask you for it. Joseph wasn't giving him advice. This is actually part of the interpretation of the dream. Because if you recall, you go back to the beginning. It didn't say just that there were 7 good cows and then later 7 bad cows. But the Torah makes a point to emphasize that he saw them standing side by side, that he saw them standing near each other. Then the 7 bad cows swallowed up the 7 good cows. All the other interpretations from all the sorcerers, from all the dream interpreters, they're professional ones. They only addressed the good and the bad. Good years, bad years. Good period of time, bad period of time. Blessing versus the opposite. But nobody addressed in their interpretation why these two were standing side by side, and that seems to be a very important and focal part of the dream, at least important enough that the Torah mentions it and makes an emphasis of it. Joseph did interpret it, and that's what he said to Pharaoh. You are being shown this. You are being told about this from God, because God wants you to put the two side by side. How do you put the 7 good years on the side of the 7 bad years? How do you bring them together that they should be there, so to speak, simultaneously? That when you have the 7 good years, you store away, you are concerned about the 7 bad years. And thus, when you have the 7 bad years, you will have, in a sense, the 7 good years, because you will be benefiting from the 7 good years by means of what you've put away for the 7 bad years. When Pharoh heard this, he said, this is the man. That's the interpretation. That makes sense. That clicks. Everything comes together. But in general, of course, Joseph was a very wise man. He wouldn't have offered unsolicited advice without, of course, being prompted by Pharoh. So in life, don't just go around offering advice. People don't like it. But when it is part of the scenario, when it's part of the equation, don't hesitate on giving it.